and a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 tonight. A little late start tonight. Um, been a busy day. Welcome to Politics 101. I would like to welcome all of you who are joining us, whether you're joining us from here in Guyana or you're joining us from outside of Guyana. Welcome to Politics 101 on Thursday night. It's been a busy day today. Um, Welcome to Politics 101. All of you are joining us from the diaspora. I don't like to use that term these days, um, but welcome to Politics 101. We have joining us tonight Mr. Paul Slowe and attorney Selwyn Peters. We're going to continue to deal with the issue of the allegations of rape against the Minister of Local Government. Just getting back from Plaisance. That is why we have a little late start. I was asked to attend a meeting at Plaisance this evening, and so I was there. I spent a few minutes. The people of Plaisance, having voted down the PPP, because I understand that NDC Industry Plaisance is 10-8, and Plaisance, of course, voted overwhelmingly, Plaisance Sparendam, overwhelmingly for the APNU. The people of Plaisance were given a letter or served with letters from the Ministry of Public Works. The letter is dated June 15, served on them on June 20th, and telling them that they have until June 27 to remove the buildings, and they have identified some houses and all the stalls on Plaisance Public Road, because the government is building a 4-lane highway. So these people are given 7 days to remove their stalls, and in some cases, homes have to be removed because the government is building a 4-lane highway. And I left the people of Plaisance, Sparendam, Good for Wacton, at a very big meeting. There over 100, 150 people were at the meeting, and many people were still going into the meeting as I was leaving. I couldn't stay through. They had requested my presence, and I was there for the first half an hour or so of the meeting and listened in, lending some solidarity. I promise I will go back to the community, but I had to rush from that meeting to come to fulfill my obligations here on Politics 101 and to give you all the news, the bad news. I understand from listening to the meeting there, the chairman of the NDC spoke, and the people of industry and Ogle, where the PPP supporters live, they were consulted at a meeting at Cummins Lodge Secondary School in December last year. The minister, I understand, was there at that meeting and consulted with those communities. Plaisance, Sparendam, and Good for Wacton were not consulted. Instead, they were served with letters that they have to remove their buildings within 7 days to build a 4-lane highway. The public road, and this is in the embankment I'm talking about here, eh? They have to remove from the embankment, the old railway embankment. The public road is 4 minutes walk from the railway embankment because, you know, Plaisance is a very deep village. The front of the village is not very deep. So it's 4 minutes walk from the embankment road to the public road. So if we follow the logic of the government, they will then have two 4-lane highways. They have one on the public road, 4 minutes walk from the public road to the embankment. You're going to have another 4-lane highway. The people in the community are saying Plaisance is a very deep village, very deep. And the people are saying that it would have been better to build the 4-lane highway deeper into the village. They're not against a 4-lane highway, but they're saying a 4-lane highway on the embankment doesn't make any sense when it's 4 minutes walk from the other 4-lane highway. So I just left that meeting and the people are up in arms. Like I said, I estimated 150 people at the meeting. And as I was leaving, people were still going in to the location of the meeting. And these people were given 7 days. The letter was dated June the 15th, served on them on June the 20th. And they have until June 27 to remove their business places from the embankment. Those of you who know Plaisance Embankment, it's a business hub. Lots of people there selling stuff, serving the entire East Coast and people from Georgetown. And these people are given 7 days to remove their business places and in some cases their homes. 7 days. And so the people are meeting in a community meeting, and that is the reason we are a few minutes late tonight. I promised to go back into the village, but I had to leave to come here. Busy day today. Today I happened to make it out to the protest in front of the office of the president against protests against the minister, the embattled minister, who, of course, is accused of raping a child, a school child. And while I was out there, reports keep coming in, that we understand it is alleged that this minister was not a lone wolf, that apparently other male ministers were involved in this racket. And it seems as if there is more to come. But it was good to be on the picket line today, to meet comrades there, and some members of the Amerindian community were out there, and they plan to continue the protest. So welcome to Politics 101 again. Late start tonight. We have Mr. Paul Slowe, who is already padded up and ready to face the new ball. And we expect attorney at law Selwyn Peters to join us later. So let's go straight and bring in Mr. Paul Slowe. Brother Paul, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening to all the viewers.
And I watched your program yesterday, and there are lots of information there as usual. And as soon as I watched that program, I thought that I would, would have to have you here to help us out and walk us through this whole business. Now, as usual, as an old police, I'm going to come at you from that angle, but not just as an old police, but as someone who understands the police and the law and the community. Now, as we understand it, there are a couple pieces of relevant information here. We understand that the commander of Region 2 got wrapped up in this story some or the other. I can't make sense of it, but we know that he got wrapped up and we know that he issued a statement. And then we had the bizarre situation where no wanted bulletin, as is the norm now, and you have said that that is a new thing in Guyana, but no wanted bulletin was issued for the minister. He turned himself in. He was then arrested, initially spent about 4 hours, and then released on $1 million station bail. Now, all of what I'm saying here is not normal. So we want you to help us with what's happening. You have been following the situation. You have been following the story from the police standpoint. Start to walk us through what went wrong and what went right as far as the police were concerned.
Well, thanks, Dr. Hines. And let me first clarify when you say old police, we have old police, OLE police, and we have old police. So I have an old police, OLE, having been around in the force for over 37 years, not an old OLD.
Right.
So let me get that right. Now, you started out by asking the question about the commander.
Yes.
Comrade Shifbaran, I think is his name.
Yes.
As superintendent of police, he's in charge of Regional Division 2. That's the Essequibo Coast and Islands. You know, a few years ago, the police divisions were made to align. They were made coterminous with the regions. In the past, you had A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, the letters for the police divisions. But over, I think, 2 years ago, the police divisions are now aligned with the regions, the administrative regions of Guyana. So this police officer is a superintendent in charge of Region 2. According to what he indicated, and this is from him, so it's not hearsay, it is not people speculating. He took a statement from the rape victim, and you know, by now people know what we're talking about. We're talking about this young lady, Amerindian girl, 16 years old, who made an allegation that she was raped and sodomized by the minister Dharamlal, Nigel Dharamlal. She said this incident occurred on the 23rd of December last year. She has a statement, and I have said it is one of the more comprehensive statements I have seen. And this is not hyping, this is not just saying it. Even this morning, again, I went through back that statement. It's like about 22 pages. And she was very, very detailed in exactly what happened. It's not only the rape, but she spoke about the grooming and all of that. Anyhow, this thing apparently appeared on social media. And having appeared on social media, I saw a statement from the president where he claimed that he was aware of this incident, but he was awaiting statement of facts. So here it is, you have a case where the president admitted to being aware of this allegation against one of his ministers, but he says that he's awaiting statement of facts. So I wrote a letter, I had to pen a letter which appeared over the weekend to say, no, Mr. President, that is not the way it works. Once an allegation is made, the law enforcement of that nature, allegation of that nature, the law enforcement authorities, i.e. the Guyana Police Force, has a responsibility to investigate. You investigate to determine facts. You can't sit back and wait for people to provide facts. An allegation is made, and one would have expected that an investigation would have been launched immediately. One would have also expected that the president, no matter how he came by this information, would have informed the police or would have instructed the police to launch an investigation. He did not do that. He was awaiting, according to him, he was awaiting a statement of facts. Well, I don't know where he's going to get that from. I don't know where he's going to get that statement of facts from. The thing exploded, the whole thing exploded, and an investigation was launched. Now, after the investigation was launched, sometime around almost the same time, on the 16th, 16 would have been when, Saturday or something like that, the commander of Region 2, the commander of a superintendent, a male superintendent, he takes a statement from the young lady who is making this rape allegation, basically to attempt to recant, to say that, and the thing is, the statement that was taken and signed by this superintendent is nonsensical, because he's saying some post, this young lady is saying some post she saw, which was made by MP my Paul, she didn't know about it, and it is not the truth. And you know, Stabrook News is reporting that they contacted him, and he's saying that, well, he acted professionally and he followed SOP. What nonsense is that? And he goes on at the same time to say that he wasn't aware of the allegation of rape. So here it is. You have a superintendent of police, the commander of a division. He's taking a statement from a victim to debunk or to recant, and he's saying that he doesn't aware of what the allegation, so he wasn't aware at the time that this allegation was about rape, and he's taking a statement. And I analyzed the statement, a lot of crap in the statement, and the statement, well, he put the time when it started. I think it was 11:15 or something. It took 3 hours and 35 minutes. Wow. And the statement that is there, I think it's in the public domain now, is something like about 15 lines. About 15 lines that took 3 hours and odd. That is so irregular. It is so irregular. And I have said, and let me go forward logically, the fact that the young lady, the victim, after that statement that was signed by Superintendent Shibran, claimed that she maintains the original story. She maintains the allegation of rape. Having regards to all the time spent, I am of the view that they were trying to coerce the girl, to intimidate her, to get her to change the story. So that, to my mind, and according to the laws of Guyana, I look at it, Section 329 of the Criminal Law Offences Act, is perverting the course of justice. This was a clear case where, I don't know where, I understand he might have been instructed to take that statement from the young lady, but he was perverting the course of justice, which is a criminal act. And I would expect, I saw today a release from the police to say that the file in this matter is with the Director of Public Prosecution. So, our next thing here, the rush to conclude this investigation is distressing to me. It is worrying, because I have had conversations with some former colleagues, very experienced detectives and investigators, and we all agree that given what is out there, this is a fairly straightforward investigation. Fairly straightforward. The worry is, and the concern is, whether the police are going to, through incompetence or deliberately, make glaring and fatal mistakes in the course of this investigation. And I have a suspicion of regards to Chief Baran's action. That is what they're going to do. They're going to deliberately blotch this investigation, so that at the end of the day, the minister can walk free. And another issue, they claim, you touched on the bail issue, and you talked about the wanted bulletin as well. But let me say, as I've said, in this case, really, there was no need, as in many other cases, there was no need for a wanted bulletin, really. But as we have said, we have seen in recent times, people whose address and whereabouts are known, they issue wanted bulletin for them. So even though I'm saying that in a case like this, there was not, under normal circumstances, there would not have been a need for a wanted bulletin. But given the way how they have been operating recently, they should have issued a wanted bulletin as well, notwithstanding the fact they knew who he was, perhaps they knew his address, they knew his contact information, because that is the way they have been operating. And then he turns himself in the company of his attorney. He turns himself in, and a mere 3 or 4 hours after, he is placed on station bail in the sum of $1 million Guyana dollars. And I asked the question yesterday on the program, was any money large? And maybe Dr. Hines and the viewers might not be aware of this, but sometime he would have signed a recognizance and they put $1 million, but no money large. So basically he just signed and he walked out. So the fact that they're saying that is on $1 million bail, that does not necessarily mean that $1 million was lodged at the police station, because I would find it very strange and irregular to have that amount of money lodged as bail at that hour in the night. And I challenge them to produce the GR. This is police talking. The GR is the general receipt. Because if bail was lodged, who is the bailee? Who bail him? You can't bail yourself. Somebody had to bail him. Who bail him? And where is the general receipt for that bail? And you're about disbursement and all of that. So there had to be a paper trail. Now, the next thing I have said, and I am repeating it here for emphasis, that it's in the public domain again that the minister is alleged to have paid 10 million Guyana dollars to the parents in 2 tranches to drop the matter, as we would say, to discontinue the proceedings. I understand they accepted $10 million. And that was before he turned himself into the police. I am saying that the fact that he did that, the fact that Chief Brown wrote a statement, in my view, of perverting the courts of justice, those would have been sufficient grounds for Daramlal to be denied bail, because it was clear that the $10 million that is a crime in itself, perverting the courts of justice, right? It's clear you get the resources to maybe tamper with witnesses, and those are grounds to keep him in custody. And what makes it even more ridiculous that he was sent on bail, because the police went and they, according to them, they visited his home to search his home a day or 2 after. Now, if you have intentions to search a person's home to find evidence, I would suspect, we had a search. And even that too was highly irregular. And I will touch on it in a short while. One would have expected that you would have kept him in custody so that he cannot tamper with evidence. He can't go and move the evidence. So that if you're gonna, when he moved from the station, he would have been straight to this search, where he would not have gotten the opportunity to interfere with anything. And you do that, but the police saying search. I don't know, you can search the property without, they claim that they searched, he was outside. They left him outside. And they went in and they searched. So that is so irregular. You can't search. First of all, if you're going to search, you ought to have had a warrant. And secondly, or you get permission from the owner of the property to search the property. And if you're going to search, I'm talking about search, the owner or some responsible body, they also have to accompany you to make sure that if evidence is found, it can be admitted in court. Because if you go and search by yourself and you find some incriminating evidence, it is easy for you to claim, well, you planted it there. I wasn't there. You didn't search in my presence, right? You planted it, right? And then, but again, some people are questioning. I know people say, look, why did they take the girl back there to re-traumatize her and all of that? But I said from very early, as a part of the investigation, given the statement that the young lady gave, it was necessary to take her back to the, what we call it, locus. The locus, but there were certain steps that should have been taken. I don't know if they took those steps. For example, one would have expected she would have given a description of the inside of the house that she went to. She would have been given a description. She already in the statement described the gate. She also said that her brother, who accompanied her, was made to sit downstairs and to watch TV. Right? She claimed that she went upstairs. So you would have been able to take a statement to say which part this TV was, which direction the TV was facing, which direction. You're doing that so that when you go with her, it's to confirm the story that she is telling. Because if she did not visit this house, you would have found out from her in writing whether she visited that place before. If she visited before, uh, clearly she said no, she indicated the first time she went there. So therefore, if she talk about the step and she talk about tables and she talk about all those other things, it confirms what she was saying. It confirms what she was saying. So I don't know. As I've said, I have some concerns in the rush to take this file to the DPP, and I have concerns the fact that the commander of Region 2 took a statement from this young lady to recant. I believe people are trying to, because of the spotlight, because of the public spotlight, they are doing the investigation, but they are going to they might deliberately, I'm not saying they will, they might deliberately make some fatal mistakes in this matter.
Brother Paul Slowe here, as usual, as they're saying in the comment section, beat and teach, Mr. Slowe, walking us through from the police perspective. We have Attorney Selwyn Peters here, and Constable, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hines, and good evening, Mr. Slowe.
Good evening, Selwyn. Good evening.
I'm glad I have the two of you all together because you all have caused some trouble for this government in the past.
The government caused some trouble for themselves, Doc. The government caused some trouble for themselves.
You all have teamed up to expose the government causing some trouble for themselves. But Selwyn, looking at this case, I'm not going to ask you any direct question. Looking at what you have seen, what you have heard, from the time this thing break to now, what concerns you have about what is happening in relation to this matter?
Well, I'll tell you the concerns that I have on its broad spectrum and broad scope. I mean, certainly the issue of the protection of children are very important. And I was advised that that in terms of the cases involving sexual exploitation and sexual abuse of children, it happens a lot in the rural areas, and it happens a lot in the mining areas, and it happens in certain communities. Guyana has a child protection system. My understanding is that the Guyana Police Force has a dedicated unit specialized to handle these cases, and money was spent, whether it's from the Justice Educational Institute in British Columbia that trains police officers and justice system officials in Guyana, or whether it's from the IDB. A lot of funding was dedicated to training police officers to deal with situations involving vulnerable children and women. In this particular case, and the discussion has already touched on it, where Comrade Shiv Baran did what he did with that. I don't know what to call that statement, but it was a disgrace, and Mr. Slowe spoke about it a lot because that statement, certainly its release to the public, was very problematic. It provided so much information to the public, including the girl's birth date, and certainly providing her birth date as Assistant Commissioner Conway said yesterday, was no accident. We know that the age of consent in Guyana is 16, right? We know that a 16-year-old can consent to sex. We also know that there are power relations in Guyana. So in the context of this situation where the complainant mother works for the minister, where the minister is going into these communities in an official capacity, where the minister knows that the girl was sent there by her mother for a particular purpose, because it was quite clear why the girl was going there. Her parents encouraged her to go there so that she can bring certain concerns to the minister's attention. And her brother was taken, and her brother was taken there as a protective measure, that the minister may conduct himself properly if a second person is there with this girl. We heard the story of um, how the minister conducted himself, and certainly, even if one out of even if 1/10 of the allegations that were made in that complaint is true, it is quite troubling. I mean, we have a situation. The president suspended an entire police service commission, and I'm just being a broken record repeating that. Suspended the entire police service commission based on based on frivolous allegations that, you know, I mean, the court should have thrown it out already. The court charged as a senior police officer and a chairman of a police service commission with sexual assault, in where somebody alleged that his hand touched her on more than one occasion, touched her pants, in a room filled with people who would have been eyewitnesses to a specific situation. This was not a case where the person said that, the official tried to induce her in any way, or tried to get her to a spot so that the person could have engaged in sexual relations or even engaged in any sexual act. In this case, you have text messages, you have WhatsApp messages, you have Facebook messages, you have the complainant's own compelling testimony, and certainly in Guyana there's a charge where one can be charged with having sexual relations with a person where they're in a position of trust. And I think that's the fundamental aspect of this case, that the minister was in a position of trust in relation to this minor indigenous person, and he abused, allegedly, that trust. I mean, look, in Canada here, we had a complaint with an attorney general who was alleged to have called the chief of police because of a traffic stop and a speeding ticket that he got from a policeman. And the Premier of Alberta demanded his immediate resignation as Attorney General for something as minor as that. He called the police officer. He called the police chief. He didn't call the prosecutor, or he didn't call the judge that's hearing the case. He called the chief of police. The chief of police could have simply said, well, this is in the hands of the justice system, and let the system run its course instead. They said, nope, you've tried to abuse your position of power. You have to go. The complaints against the minister not only came from one person, it seemed to originate from a number of persons. I mean, this situation here is a serious blot on the government, regardless, irrespective of what happens in the courts. This is a major scar on the Orphan Ali's government, and President Ali and Vice President Jagjo, because I know you all listen to these programs, because y'all are. I know y'all listen to these programs, and I know that y'all still hold Selwyn Peters in high esteem.
Selwyn,
Y'all should demand the resignation of the minister, failing which he should be fired. You cannot have double standards. Look what you did to an entire police service commission. You terminated 5 Guyanese citizens of impeccable character from a service commission that was independent. Cabinet ministers serve at the pleasure of the president. So you don't have to go through a judicial service commission. You don't have to hold a hearing. You don't have to do none of that. They serve at your pleasure and your leisure. You don't have to give reasons for terminating a minister's employment. You can simply say, sir, I no longer have use for you in my cabinet. You no longer serve the public interest. And he no longer serves the public interest. It's just the baggage that you want to carry with you, President Ali and Vice President Jagdeo, when you travel the world stage, when you attend these forums, that people look at your government as a government that condones the actions of Nigel Darren. Look, Darren Law's conduct continues to be despicable and disreputable. The comment that he made in the House, the Parliament about dildos to the member of Parliament, that should have called for his resignation already, because he has no respect for women. You know, the allegations that the female made in New York, that should have been thoroughly investigated. This is not the first time. Darren Law's penis, or P, sorry, I shouldn't use the word in your program. Darren Law's mushroom, as Mr. Slowe was talking about yesterday. Now they're talking about mushroom and baby mushroom. And Slowe was laughing his head off yesterday when he spoke about it.
I'm
But that's
laughing again.
that's online. Like you're a person in high office. There's a certain ethical, there's a certain moral, and there's a certain legal standard. There has to be integrity in public office. You know, and the stuff about paying $10 million, if that is found to be true, that is another charge that minister should face. If any money was passed on his behalf to that victim. Another thing that should be investigated is perversion of the course of justice with respect to Comrade Siv Baran.
Mhm.
That statement and the nonsensical reasons and explanations that he gave for that statement, it doesn't pass scrutiny. But Dr. Hines, I know that I interrupted you when you were speaking a moment ago, so I might as well pause so that you can.
No, I wanted to ask you a quick question before I go back to Mrs. So. It was reported yesterday that the child attempted to secure legal representation, and that this allegedly was not granted by the state. And there was a debate as to whether it was our right, or legal and constitutional right, to have legal representation. What is your view?
Well, I can only speak from my Canadian experience, because I've dealt with sexual assault cases over here, and in Canada, a complainant secures counsel at the insistence or the request of the state. And Mr. Slowe and I had this discussion last evening. So the state so there's a roster of complainants counsel in Ontario where I live.
Mhm.
And so if there are issues that can deal with the complainant's reasonable expectation of privacy, or any other matter that falls within the scope of the matter that would involve the complainant in any way, then what the state does is it contacts one of the roster members who are available to serve as complainants counsel, and then a judge's order is made appointing that counsel. So the counsel is actually paid by the state, but it's an independent lawyer who represents that person. But in a criminal process, a complainant usually is treated as any other witness, and in the normal course, except for in sexual assault cases, and a few other cases where the reasonable expectation of privacy or the complainant's interest may be at stake. For example, an accused is trying to get into the sexual history or the medical or therapeutic records of a complainant that goes to their reasonable expectation of privacy, then counsel is appointed for the complainant. But in a case like this, where you have a vulnerable minor, an indigenous person, and you have a person like the minute in the position of Mr. Dharamlal, I mean, if counsel is available, the courtesy should have been granted, and Mr. Ramjitan spoke extensively about that yesterday on 2 different shows.
Yes. Yes.
I think this is what I want to say, because from what I heard from Mr. Ramjitan, the Child Protection Agency did the interview, and so it seems like they did it according to international standards. The child was interviewed in a child-friendly room. The room was recorded. The room had recording equipment, and there was a separate room where the police officers and other officials were in that separate room monitoring the interviews. That is how it's conducted in Canada, where there's an allegation.
Mr. Slowe, I want you to chime in on the same question, but I also want to ask you this crazy question. Is it normal as somebody makes an allegation, they go to the police station, is it normal for the commander to interview that person?
It's very unusual because, as my colleague Mr. Conway said yesterday on our program, that perhaps that might be the first statement he has taken in a long time.
Exactly.
The first statement he would have taken in a long time. So I maintain that, given all the circumstances, that was a deliberate effort to pervert the course of justice. Deliberate. There's no question in my mind about that. And Selwyn, you forget that Dharamlal was accused of threatening an IDB official. He pulled the gun. They claimed that he pulled the gun. And the matter went to the DPP. And the DPP decided not to proceed with criminal charges because, according to the report, the parties settled the matter. And this was reported, I think the incident occurred in Cummins Lodge on the East Coast, where this IDB claimed and communicated with his ex-wife, with Dharamlal's ex-wife, and he's alleged to have pulled a gun and threatened the official. Yeah. You must also remember that he, along with others, were charged in a $350 million fraud case involving the Guyana Rice Development Board. He was charged with that. And, interestingly, I like research. The matter was dismissed at some stage because his attorneys failed to show up on 3 consecutive occasions at the court. The attorneys at that time being Anil Nandalal, the now Attorney General, and Priya Manikchan, the now Minister of Education. The report is that they failed to turn up in court on 3 consecutive occasions, and that caused the matter to be dismissed. That is what is reported in the media. So this man has a colorful career. He has a colorful career.
Now, well, Mr. Slowe, one more thing. Remember the comments about the 2 judges from the Court of Appeal?
Yes, well, I had that too. I made a note because he did also, when a ruling from the 2 judges from the Court of Appeal went against the government, he was on social media calling for them to be defrocked. He was very disrespectful to those female legal luminaries, calling for them to be defrocked. And, Selwyn has made the point about how certain people are treated. I'm not going to comment on any further in it because I am before the court on this sexual assault where, as Selwyn indicated some while ago, it's alleged that I touched a female officer, on her leg on 3 different occasions. And remember, when I turned up in court, Selwyn was there on the 15th of October 2021. The matters were already before the court, and Ramana from Soku and others were there to arrest me for the same matters. They were there to arrest me. Nobody went to arrest Dharamlal. Dharamlal was allowed to turn himself in. And a question was asked earlier by one of the one of the viewers here about the file going to the DPP and whether that has to be so. Yes, the file has to go to the DPP. There's no question about that. The DPP is supposed to review the file. You see, it's a criminal matter, and the DPP has authority over all criminal matters in Guyana, whether private or public. Public meaning charges filed by the police and other public agencies. Private meaning like the one with the lawyer that is alleged to have spat on the young lady. That was a private charge, but she can discontinue all of those. But it has to go to the DPP. And it raises well, they said that the file went today. And so we are now waiting to hear what the DPP will advise. I have said to some of my colleagues, and Selwyn alluded to it, given what is laid out in the statement, given what is laid out, we ain't getting to no trial or anything like that yet. Given the accusation that is made, I am saying that that is sufficient for a charge of rape to be instituted against Darren Lal. So therefore, we're looking to see what the DPP will do. I have said too that from my experience, when matters like these or some matters go to the DPP, as we would say, try to dance. In other words, the file is sent back to the police to clarify this and to clarify that, to get an additional statement from this and a further statement from that body. That is done. That usually that used to be done. But in recent times, once these files go to the DPP acts with alacrity and charges are implemented immediately. And we have seen cases, including the cases that Selwyn referred to, where the DPP instructs for charges to be instituted. And in my case and the other case, 2 years down the road, 2 years have passed, and the matter can't be going any place. So again, having regards to that, I am awaiting to see what the DPP, because I would expect, based on what is revealed, the allegation, that a charge of rape will be instituted, will be recommended and instituted. I will also expect that well, I don't expect this, but I would, as we have said, there are other offenses that are to be investigated. So even if this file relates to the rape, we're talking about clear attempts to pervert the course of justice, which should be investigated, and persons should be held accountable for those charges, those offenses as well. And again, once the matter gets to the DPP recommends charge. Let's see what will happen with this bail story again, because if charges are recommended or a charge is recommended, one would expect that the minister will be, well, perhaps he will surrender again. He has to be arrested again. And he has to be formally charged by the police, and I hope that they go into the book and they make the note so that they get the steps correct in terms of cautioning him before charge, the charge is read to him, he's cautioned after charge, and all of that. Then he's taken to court where he's not going to plead, because a rape charge is not a summary charge, it's an indictable charge. Yeah. So therefore, the information is going to be sworn to, and I'm waiting also to see who will swear to the information. The information is going to be sworn to, and then the judge or the magistrate is going to then decide the question of bail. And I maintain that there are sufficient grounds in this matter for bail to be denied, because the minister, Nigel Darmlal, and others have clearly been attempting to pervert the course of justice. And if he is given pre-trial liberty, as the lawyers will say, one can expect that they're going to try to tamper with witnesses, either himself or others. And let me say this, my viewers, Dr. Heinz, Selwyn, listen to this carefully. There was what matter, I think it was last year, I wrote about it and I spoke about it extensively. Dr. Heinz, you're a countrywoman of yours, a young 18-year-old girl, had to go to some function, and her mother, 18-year-old girl, had to get permission from her mother to go to some school party. The mother called a taxi driver who was known to the family.
Yes.
He picked her up and he took her to this event, and with instruction for her to return home at a particular time. She came in a little late. And then she told the mother that the driver took her to a lonely spot and he raped her. The mother went to Cove and John police and made a report. It was a runaround because in order for the man who lives in the vigilance police district to be arrested, they said that they wanted the vigilance police to make the arrest. I never hear that. So they from Cove and John couldn't go and arrest this man. And it was a long story. The upshot of that is that this rape victim was interviewed, and this is contrary to the Sexual Offences Act, in the presence of the accused person.
Yes.
Humiliated in the presence of the accused person. The young lady went home and she committed suicide.
Suicide, yes.
And therefore, the rape victim, the rape suspect rather, goes free. I am saying the young lady committed suicide. So therefore, there's no case to proceed with. So this young lady in this Dharamlal case has to be protected from all harm and all eventuality. That is very, very important. Because if she walk and carry an accident, then Dharamlal walks free.
Yes,
I just wanted to make that point.
Yes. I'm very glad. Brother Marvin, I'm going to make contact with you, Marvin Williams. I noticed you in the audience, and you've been on my mind a lot for the last couple of days. And I was looking to see if I had a contact for you, and I don't. So contact me, or I will contact you as early as possible. I'm very glad, Mr. Paul Slowe, that you remember that case. I am so glad that you remember that case, because that is relevant here. Selwyn, let me come back to you. There is this question that is all over Facebook, all over. I was just in Plaisance, as I reported at the beginning of this meeting, where they're trying to get the people off. They give the people 7 days to remove their stalls from the Plaisance line top and some homes, because the government claim it's going to build a 4-lane highway. And there is a big community meeting. There were about 150 people or more when I left the meeting. And the people stopped me as I was leaving to ask me, it is about Mr. Nigel Hughes representing Dharamlal. And I have known for years about something that lawyers can't refuse a case and so on and so forth. But from a lawyer's perspective, can you shed some light on that for our audience?
Yeah, I can say two things about it. The first thing is I'm going to deal with a bad aspect in respect to Nigel, representing Nigel, because Nigel Dharamlal has already made a number of statements prior to hiring Mr. Hughes, attacking his integrity, attacking his honesty, and attacking the sort of clients that he represents. Right? That's what Nigel Dharamlal has done, and people have regurgitated those posts and reposted them on Facebook. So Nigel Hughes is going to have an uphill battle in terms of the trust and confidence, really, that Nigel Dharamlal has in him, given these comments that Nigel Dharamlal has made in the past, attacking him as a person and as a lawyer. But the aspect that you want is to hear about is something that I have repeated many times. Defense lawyers usually defend principles and people, not the crimes or wrongs they're alleged to or actually committed. Which means that, when we are retained by clients, and I've done some of the most prominent, high-profile murder cases in Canada and sexual assault cases I've done. I just did a sexual assault case involving a correctional officer. The thing about it is we are there to ensure that the scales of justice are weighed equally. We're there to ensure fairness for the accused. We're there to ensure that that person's rights are protected, and any defense that's available to that person irrespective of whether the person committed the offense or raised. I mean, sometimes people commit offenses and they're viable defenses that get them off. And, that is the nature of our system. So in this case, though, it's problematic. Um, I'm not going to comment on the decision that Mr. Hughes made to take this case on, but lawyers can refuse clients. I refuse clients all the time. In a case like this, I don't know where it's going to land. I don't know the conflict of interest screening that Mr. Hughes went through. There is possible conflicts of interest here, even because Mr. Hughes has a number of clients, and even including Mr. Slowe as his client. This is a government official. You know, um, what if as part of Mr. Slowe's case, there's disclosure of cabinet documents that shows that Nigel Dharamlal was part of a decision-making or deliberation in cabinet in respect to Mr. Slowe and the Police Service Commission future. And there was discussion in respect to any criminal matters that might have been before the courts. Or are there any other number of matters? Or what if Mr. Hughes was the lawyer or in some way connected to one of the witnesses that may come forward in this case? Mr. Hughes is a very prominent attorney, and I know that people want to talk about lawyers and lawyers' ethics and what lawyers can and can't do. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Hughes, and no doubt about that. But I think sometimes we have to really, like, there are other lawyers that can take a case on of this kind, particularly whereas here, Mr. Nigel Dharamlal has attacked Mr. Nigel Hughes publicly on more than one occasion. Let me tell you this about Selwyn Peters. Anyone that attacks Selwyn Peters in the public, or anyone that attacks Selwyn Peters even privately, I'm refusing to represent them because it could pose a conflict of interest. I would never represent a person who publicly attacked me, and in the way that Nigel Dharamlal attacked Nigel Hughes on more than one occasion.
Yes. Mr. Slowe, let me come back to you. So the matter is now with the DPP. You've walked us all through all the possibilities. Really, and I always stress that because you always stress it, which is you always say, look, you're a police and you're not anti-police. So I just want to repeat that because I know that that is part of your core principle. But I'm still going to pose this question. Do you, from what you've seen thus far, do you have confidence that the police will see this matter through in an impartial way?
Doc, let me ask it this way. Again, I say, looking at the evidence that is in the public domain, that is the accusation by the female that she was raped and the detailed statement she has given publicly. I don't know what else she would have given to the police, but what is available publicly? What is available publicly? I am saying that if this matter is properly investigated, as I had a discussion with my colleague, they could bring Perry Mason, you could have Matlock together, and it's according to William Barr, the former Attorney General of the U.S., Nigel Dharamlal's goose is cooked. The evidence is so compelling that it is cooked. The issue is, and this is to answer directly to what you have said, I have no faith and confidence that they will do the correct thing. Again, we have already seen the intervention of Superintendent Shifbaran, and his intervention was clearly intended to derail this matter. So if at that level, the superintendent, the divisional commander level, we have that type of intervention, one shudders to think, because I don't believe the investigators might be people who are perhaps of similar rank or junior to Chief Buran. And if he has done that, one can well imagine what type of other pressures and stuff will be placed on those people who are investigating the matter. I said to, again, as a police, the statement is there, but there are a lot of things that you need to corroborate what the young lady has said. Somebody asked earlier here about cameras. Somebody wanted to comment. Where is building that camera? Well, this incident is alleged to have taken place since December. And I don't believe, unless you are archiving the footage, which is not a common thing for private residences, to archive the footage over a long period of time. But you have what they tout and they boast about, this safe city thing, with cameras all over the city and the outskirts. And therefore, those images I would expect are archived in some type of way where you could go and restore. So the girl spoke about the Louis pickup. She spoke about driving to Campbellville or wherever the minister lives, and wherever. You should get image to confirm all of those things. The telephone records, I don't know that they have subpoenaed the telephone records and make sure that it is there as evidence. You need to get all of those things. Yeah, you have our screenshot as well. But you need to get, did they seize the minister's phone and attempt to access, get a warrant or whatever to access the records of that phone? I don't know. So I'm saying, and given the fact that in such a short time, this file has been taken to the DPP for legal advice, I suspect that a lot of things are excluded. I know too that what happened in many occasions, even in my days, you carry a file because you have a prima facie case. So you carry the file, that doesn't necessarily mean that the investigation has been completed. You can bring a charge and you can still continue the investigation. So I'm hoping that that is what is going to take place in this case. Because having said that, because if the DPP recommends, as I expect that she will do, a charge, then this is a classic case, and I'm sure Selwyn will agree with me, for a paper committal. So the victim would not have to go through a preliminary inquiry. The Sexual Offences Act caters to that. And for those people who don't know, paper committal means that the DPP recommends charge. He is the Darnell is charged. At some stage, once you have completed their investigations, you have disclosure, where all the documents for the prosecution is presented to the attorney representing. Now they go through and they exchange all the discussions. Is gonna the arguments and the submissions are gonna make written submissions. And at some stage, the magistrate will decide, well, yes, this is sufficient for a judge and jury to get involved. Then it goes back to the DPP for the DPP to commit to stand trial at the High Court. So this ought to move very speedily. When it gets to the High Court is another issue, because I know they have this sequential arrangement at the High Court as to how cases come up for trial. But I'm saying again, and I'm emphasizing, that given the compelling evidence contained in the statement released by this young lady, Matlock, Perry Mason, and all of those persons will find it difficult, if a proper investigation is done, will find it difficult to spring him from this charge.
Selwyn, same question to you.
I think you might be muted.
You're muted, Selwyn.
It's in Nigel Darmlaw's best interest as it stands right now that his matter proceeds through the normal course of the criminal justice system. I mean, the court of public opinion is overwhelmingly against him, given everything that's in the public domain. His best fight now is in the court before a judge and or jury. He's got good lawyers. He's lawyered up well. Let the process run its course. I agree with Mr. Hughes that perhaps the file has gone to the DPP very early, but as we know, in the criminal justice system, even if the file goes early to the prosecution, the investigation can continue up to and including trial. So the investigation doesn't stop because the file went to the DPP. The investigation has to continue. I hope that they did a forensic examination of the girl. They do all that sort of stuff over here. If she wore certain clothing to go to Mr. Nigel Darmla's home, and those clothing weren't washed, they could be tested for his semen, and a DNA analysis could be conducted. They could get a DNA warrant to seize his DNA and test it against what comes up with the girls through a biology exam. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of forensic investigations and stuff to be done. But the fact that it went to the DPP, the fact that a paper committal could take place, all that sort of stuff is part of the process, and the investigation doesn't even stop after paper committal.
Mr. Slowe, as we wind down, is there anything compelling that you think we should know? Something that we're missing? I thank you so much for your reference to that case about the girl from Buxton that committed suicide. I think that is so important for us to raise in the public space, because this is high stakes, and anything could be done to that young lady. This is high stakes. Anything that we should know that we are missing, that you want to bring to our attention?
Yes, I want to make this point, Doc. People have been saying, including the vice president and a lot of the people who are perhaps even supporting Dharamlal, they're speaking now about the presumption of innocence. They say that Nigel Dharamlal should be presumed innocent. That is how the rule of law works. He should be presumed innocent until proven guilty by a competent court. But I want to remind persons that in recent times, that presumption of innocence has not been applied to everyone. Yeah. I want to remind them of Sergeant Damian McLennan. Sergeant Damian McLennan was one of the persons who was charged with the Quindon Bacchus murder, charged with perverting the course of justice when the evidence clearly showed that he was nowhere there. He, the other guy, Christophe, and the guy Simon, they were charged, I think, on the 5th of July. And the same day, the man who sits in the chair of the Commissioner of Police dismissed them. So there was no presumption of innocence in that case. And only recently, 3 police ranks, 3 constables from Barbies were dismissed summarily over some incident where a police officer, an assistant superintendent of police, misplaced his firearms. And somehow these 3 ranks are dismissed. The point is, I'm trying to make, the presumption of innocence should be applied to every single one, including Nigel Dharamlal, but you can't dismiss summarily these police ranks, 6 ranks and more, just like that, without them benefiting from the presumption of innocence, and then jump on the mountaintop to speak about presumption of innocence in Dharamlal case. It's double standard, and that should not be.
Thank you very much for that observation. Selwyn, your closing thoughts, anything that you want to leave us with that you think would be important and pivotal as we move forward in these coming days?
Well, I think I'm going to re-emphasize one point. Given the conduct of the Guyana police force, given the conduct of particularly the divisional commander, Comrade Shiv Baran, an independent investigation by investigators, they could have even get Canadian investigators, some of the best sexual assault investigators involving children, right at the hospital for sick children here in Toronto. They should have hired independent investigators to conduct the investigation and the forensic aspects of this case. And I mentioned the forensic aspect because what happened when the girl went to the scene was troubling, with the lawyers for the accused being there, videotaping the complainant, the complainant coming face to face with the accused at his home, We don't know. We heard that the room was painted over, things were shifted around, a whole bunch of troubling troubling events, and the police need to explain this, and or the child protection agency needs to explain this, that how can you have such missteps with a minor that's already vulnerable. Guyana is at a tipping point with this case, and like I said, this case is going to be a major stain on the government. We have an indigenous girl who complains that she's been raped by a minister. She has been raped by a minister. We have other indigenous minors coming forward with other events that they allege were sexual in nature. We also have a situation recently where 19 Aboriginal or indigenous kids were killed in a fire, and no one at the top has been held responsible. Ministerial responsibilities in these situations mean that you resign. Even whether the president accept the resignation or not, it's another point. But we've got a number of difficult issues that are taking place that certainly raises significant questions with respect to how the government is conducting itself. I appreciate that you want to protect your ministers, but you want to protect your ministers at what expense? The ministers and your government is there to serve the citizens, and if the ministers are abusing their power and in the most violent sexual manner, um, you have to wear it on your shoulders. You have to bear that cross if you can't take decisive action. And the government should have taken decisive action, terminate the writ of Mr. Dharmlal to be a minister, and he can come back after the charges are done if he's acquitted. But for now, he doesn't get to sit at the cabinet table, or he doesn't get to enjoy the luxuries associated with being a minister, including police protection and guards at his home, free electricity, and all that sort of stuff. Terminate him, um, remove him from parliament, and let somebody else sit there. His continued actions, as Mr. Paul Slowe described, um, certainly raises fundamental questions as to the direction of this government and the sort of integrity, ethics, and moral compass. I mean, we already had an attorney general who was found to brought the entire administration of justice into disrepute. We had a president who was found to have violated the Constitution and the individual rights of 5 upstanding members of society. Um, I'm gonna keep a running chart now of all the violations of this government, because it's just painfully obvious that we're running into a whole bunch of difficulties, and it's only 3 years in. Um, as they would say in the military, President Ali, get a grip of yourself and get a grip of those ministers.
Yes. Yes. Selwyn Peters, attorney
Doc,
at law.
I want to quickly make 2 brief points.
Sure.
Selwyn spoke about the assistance to independent investigation, and I totally agree. And I want to remind our viewers and you folks on this panel that when some time back an allegation of rape was made against the Commissioner Henry Green, the government, the very PPP government at the time, sought help from one of the sister CARICOM countries. People came to assist with the investigation. So it is not something that is unprecedented. I want to make that point. And secondly, I am saying this without any fear of successful contradiction. The fact, if it is true that the accused minister has painted over the room and have shifted around furniture, he can only do that because he was informed by the persons, the police,
Yes.
that look, this is what is being described, and therefore the attempt is made to discredit the person. So, if, for example, if she would have said to them that this TV that our brother was made to look at was on the western side, They put it on the eastern side. So then they're going to use that to say, well, she said it was on the west, and really then on the west, it's on the east, means she might have never been there, and that type of thing. So I am saying it is very troubling. It is very troubling, and that is why I say I have no confidence that this investigation can be done, a credible investigation can be done by the police. And again, we say that even if, or when, as I expect, charges are to be laid, that is just the beginning, because you still have to go and prove the case.
Yeah.
You still have to go and prove the case.
You still have to go and prove the case, but we are certainly going to keep on it. And thank you very much, Mr. Paul Slowe. Thank you very much, Mr. Selwyn Peters, attorney at law. Paul Slowe, of course, is a former policeman, assistant commissioner, and should have been at a higher rank if it were not for spite from high places. As usual, brothers, thank you all so much for bringing professional information and perspective to our program. Thank you all very much. And thank you, our audience. I mentioned at the beginning that I came from Plaisance, where they've given the people of Plaisance 7 days to remove their stalls from the Plaisance lineup. Brisk business place, a business hub. They have been given 7 days to remove their stalls, and in some cases, people's homes have to be removed because the government says that it is building a 4-lane highway. We understand that they consulted with the people of industry and ogle since the December. They never consulted with the people of Plaisance, Parindam, and Good for Acton. And there's a community meeting going on right now. I was invited to sit in at that meeting. I had to leave to come to this program. But we want to alert you all that this notice came just 1 week after the PPP was soundly beaten in Plaisance, Good for Acton, and they've lost the NDC, we understand, 10-8. And so this look like spite work. We're going to continue to cover that issue, but I want to, as usual, thank you all tonight for coming out again in huge numbers, huge numbers. I thank you all for staying on top of this story. I was on the picket line today. I understand the pickets are ongoing. I was there today, and I'm going to try to get out as much as I can. The more we keep this issue in the public space, the more we are going to correct some of the attempts that have been made already to cover up this matter. I said on the picket line today, and I'm saying it again, the courts will take care of Dharamlal, but the government of Guyana has already been found guilty. They have already been found guilty. This matter goes beyond the individual. And I want to say so much thanks to that child. I think that child has done more than many adults. You hear so many adults say, I can't do this, I can't do that because I'm going to get discriminated and I'm going to this and this going to happen and I'm going to lose my job. But that child is an example to us. She may lose, she stands to lose her life. She has put her life, a child, on the line to protect the integrity of all of us. We all have children, your children, who are vulnerable to the ravages of these people in high places. So until tomorrow night, then I'm going to have another panel to continue coverage of this issue. I want to thank you all and to say, as I always do, I love you. I love you all. And the love is not the love of a politician to a voter. It is the love of one human being to other human beings, what it is to be human. That is what we poor people and people of color continue to ask, what it is to be human. And this experience of a minister man in high places, certainly that little girl was not treated as a human being. That little girl was not treated as a human being. As I said last night, if we thought that we were not going to continue this struggle, we must now continue this struggle. And as we say in folk songs, Turn Backyard Man, are we depanam? Are we depanam? See you all tomorrow night.